overlaps very well with our culture, I think, in the sense that, as I explained before, they're not deities, they're not karma, they're not kind of any belief. So this is, you don't need to be a Buddhist at all to do it. And the idea is that, as I was explaining before, in Buddhism they have, or not Buddhism, Taoism, mystic Christianism, there's a lot of traditions who state that suffering is not inherent in life, but it is a sort of, I'm going to use the word illusion, but we could say some sort of unconscious processing of our own personal minds that is creating our experience the way it is, in which we suffer, we feel loss, we feel lack, we feel, well, you know, you know how it is. And so, well, this is an aspect of Vipassana. Vipassana is something that it will feel very familiar to many of you because it relates to what is normally watered down to mindfulness, which is some sort of just sit there and peacefully just observe this moment as it is and try to not get lost in thought, something like that. You can use your breath or you can focus on different things, but basically it has a bit of a very loose edge, and that fits very well our modern mind because basically everyone has attention deficit disorder. That is normal. Say this because all these methodologies come from a time where people, I mean, just imagine life just 300 years ago. People will probably have a very simple life, no phones, no internet, no even electronics. They just probably were doing some sort of manual work of some sort and in a very peaceful environment with scarcity, which sort of enhances your appreciation and your attention and your relationship to your environment and things like that. So, yeah, imagine, I don't know, a shepherd. That was kind of most people's life at that time. So for these people, accessing concentration was relatively natural. Like it's just something that if you see kids, they many times they just do. They just sort of land into something and just with out of curiosity and an effortless kind of feedback, they just get into a very enjoyable state of curiosity about the clouds, the shape of the clouds, or an interesting thing around. But so I'm just bridging that these teachings were starting a long time ago and based on that kind of lifestyle. Nowadays, most people, when they sit to meditate and try to focus their mind, it is frustrating to say the least. It makes everybody feel they're bad at this thing of meditation. This is too difficult. So we have this branch of mindfulness that comes from this Vipassana movement that comes from an intention of modern people try to zoom into meditation, start getting into it without having this hardcore friction of if you try to stay here and focus on one single thing, most people experience will feel completely out of their hands. Like your mind just sucks you in every other second. I mean, average humans nowadays have 8 seconds span, meaning that's basically what we do all the time. We just don't notice because we are just doing some sort of retracting in our minds and doing some quick snapshots of things. And actually, most of the time, we're not even looking at things. We are just working with our own concept of things. Okay, yeah, this guy, he comes from Spain. He probably likes paella. We don't even deal with the person. We are all the time inside of our conceptual understanding of the world. And that, as entertaining that could be sometimes, is very, very, very messy. It's like to live inside of dreams and assumptions constantly. So leaves a lot of space for friction, for war, for suffering in general, right? So there is this simple, ancient, profound teaching of stabilizing your mind, not as a statement of any truth, but more like the tool you will use to actually find your own truth. Meaning, without assumption, making any assumption or trying to understand any specific belief. The understanding of concentration, as I said before, it's hello, it is in every tradition. It already makes a huge point that if you ask me personally, I would say this is exactly what everybody is missing. Not just from the point of mental health. I would say we're living in times where most people have some sort of clear mental imbalance. I'm talking from anxiety, depression, a lot of things that they're so normal nowadays that we don't even are strange. We don't feel that it's strange that someone will comment, "Oh, I've been going through a rough time. I thought of taking my own life." Of course, in a very personal context, but you wouldn't be surprised. It's like, okay, I know what you mean. I've seen a movie about that, and it feels very familiar. Well, that I'm talking in a personal level right now. Um, that only can happen in a very confused and cathartic state of being, in a huge state of confusion and distraction. So this idea of concentrating your mind is not just spiritual abstract gymnastics for the brain, as much as it could be healthy, but I'm saying that it implies for most people probably the way of pulling your shit together in your life, like feeling certain kind of independency and coherence as a human with what you feel, with what you think, with what you say, and with what you do, which seem very simple thing to say, but probably if we examine ourselves a bit more honestly, you may realize that it's a bit demanding to try to live by the coherence of all your being. So I'm just trying to imply that this is not a simple exercise of concentration. It has a profound impact in anybody's life, not just from mental health, but as I was explaining before, and I'm gonna finish with this introduction. Everybody has a very, I would say, even unlimited amount of intelligence, but it's not accessible to us because our mind is constantly split. So imagine that source of power that is the energy you get every morning when you wake up, assuming that you had a good sleep. It's just the moment you wake up and you pick your phone to shut down the alarm and you see that notification. You just remember who you are, what did you do, what you have to do, and the time that you have to do that, suddenly it's just like very strong conditioning and like right out of the box from this very moment. That's why many people meditate early in the morning or before to sleep. You can just have a bit of more of a natural, just resting mind, still unconscious, but still kind of coherent compared to the normal average mind. So um, basically, the concept of putting your attention together consciously and being able to rest your attention on whatever you're doing, whoever you're talking to. I'm just trying to say that it has benefits probably beyond what most people could even imagine. So I'm saying it's not just concentration, there's a lot more to it. But let's think of it as concentration. And let's do a little bit of an exercise to see if what we just discussed makes sense. So just find a comfortable position. It's just going to be a little exercise for a couple of minutes. Just want to observe what is happening continuously with our attention. And a good way of start feeling familiar with this is to use your eyes. So pick something that is in front of you, maybe 50 centimeters to 1 meter in front of you. Just pick just one spot, maybe the tip of one grass or something very, very specific, and try to let your eyes to rest the focus of your eyes in that specific spot. Our regular training of concentration says force your eyes to hold your onto that spot. So your eyes aren't constantly trying to go away from the spot, but we just override that chaos with another activity that is pushing that compulsive distraction to put it there. Well, this is not going to work for what we're trying to do. So what I'm gonna suggest you to do is to try to, when you see your eyes go away from that little spot, just try to relax them. Try to avoid to being pulled off by means of relaxing your eyes. You can feel how your eyes are trying to move around, and that's okay. We are discussing, we are sensitizing ourselves to not force our focus. So you will feel this pull towards different directions. Try to relax so much that your eyes will ignore these nervous movements around. You can blink and relax your eyes. Please do. Don't force your eyes. So with this exercise, you can start understanding some important principles of this meditation. First thing is you deliberately choose an object, and second, you stay in that object by means of relaxing the unconscious pulling outwards or in different directions. But you will also notice something that is very crucial to make this right, which is there is a bit of a simultaneous experience of your eyes is focusing in one spot, and yet at the same time, you can notice other things. So you would say, yes, my eyes are focused in one single tiny spot. But at the same time, you wouldn't say that you cannot see anything else. So you discover there are some sort of foreground of your attention, the focus of your attention, but at the same time, there is a background of your focus. You will soon discover that you not only have to relax your eyes, you sort of have to relax all your body and your attitude in general to be able to sustain that focus point without effort. And yes, there may be some effort initially, that's normal. You may even notice how your mind sometimes thinks, and although your eyes are there, your attention is not there. Like your eyes stay there, but you're thinking of something else. You can also notice how your attention, although you think you're focusing on a specific point with your eyes, your attention has been sort of like, to a huge extent, kidnapped by a thought. So just for this exercise, try to remain with the act of seeing that single spot, not denying anything else, and not by forcing yourself, but by means of relaxation. You're gonna close your eyes a little bit, let them rest, unless you know you have done this meditation with your eyes before, probably you strain them a little bit. That's okay. You also do it when you watch Netflix, so it's okay. Just rest your eyes a little bit, take a few deep, slow breaths, and now you can gently open your eyes. And this exercise helped me to make the introduction to talk about the first three stages. In the first stage, it's all about this conscious intention. For example, with this exercise we did, it was only with our eyes. Meditation, as you probably know, is done with many other ways, meaning just with your attention. So it could be your breath. We're actually gonna use our breath later. So that's why I'm gonna mention it now. But you can use literally any object. But probably you already can start seeing how actually having a very small scope of your attention, it gives you a great sensitivity to feel when you're lost. Because if I would just tell you, just open your eyes and just see, most people would have got lost in thought without even notice. We still have the impression, oh yeah, I was seeing, yes, I'm seeing trees, right? And but just focus, taking the decision to focus on a very small spot, it gives you the opportunity to actually notice a lot easier when you are not there. It becomes very apparent. This simple idea is very powerful if you want to let go of unconscious, incoherent, involuntary tendencies. So the first stage is all about the fact of just having the initial intention of saying, I'm going to focus on this. First thing, normally you don't find much friction. You say, okay, I'm going to sit, I'm going to focus on my breath. In the very beginning, there's no much friction, maybe for the first couple of seconds. And so on the first stage, you basically just do that all the time, which for many people may feel a little frustrating, but it's important to emphasize that is where you should start. And think of these stages not as a way of judging yourself or comparing yourself to others or something like that, but think of it more like gears, different gears of your mind and your state that you can fine tune to little by little know yourself better and be able to interact in a more direct and raw way to your experience. So the first gear is okay, just go back to it. It's okay. Your mind goes away. Okay, just go back to it. You're just practicing this initial statement. Please go back to it. Just this very first touch. That's basically the first stage. I'm going to be referencing there are two main books that I think are very important in this subject. And the first one is from one of my teachers, which is The Attention Revolution, which is a bit more Buddhist, actually, because he's a Buddhist scholar. He was the translator from the Dalai Lama, and he's a very well-known person um, in this environment. And he's making this point a lot, like how crucially important is this aspect of meditation is more relevant probably than any other, as far as you find yourself that you cannot concentrate effortlessly for long periods of time. Trying to understand the origin of the universe and the root of suffering is kind of close to impossible. So This should be the starting place for everyone with any kind of meditation. So one in the Alan Wallace, that's person that I was mentioning before. I can send links about this later and can give you more information about everything I say. And the other book is something that came up actually in the last few years. Few years is 9 years, 8 years. But a neuroscientist that unfortunately he died. Was a very unfortunate situation because he was about to develop a very interesting line of teachings based on science and contemplative traditions. And he has a very good, very nice book that is to some extent known in meditation environments that is called The Mind Illuminated, which is a very nice, comprehensive manual to have all the information you need to approach this topic. That was his intention because normally these teachings are learned in an environment with teachers and other people. So it's very rich environment, not just a book or something you read. So he tried to make a manual so everyone could feel free to sort of explore that from a neuroscience point of view, but at the same time, very coherent with all these traditions. And in his definition, he says the first stage is just sitting every day to meditate. I think it's a very nice way because some people are sometimes, what is the right meditation that I should be doing? You know what? It just doesn't matter if you don't sit every day. It's just pointless what kind of meditation you do. Just sit every day and find, as you were mentioned before, find your own way through it. And the fact you sit every day, that would be, in this context, consider the first stage. You pull the different sections of your mind together in one single intention. You created the habit. That's one level. That's one access level. So that would be stage one. So if you meditate already kind of daily, you've already been through stage one. Stage two, it is probably where many or most people abide, where you're attempting to have a bit longer stretches of attention. So it's not that you just go back to it, but you're trying to stay stabilize a bit longer in there. And let's just assume someone will meditate for 15 or 20 minutes. That may be that you you will succeed on stage two. And this is again, this is a very generic numbers, but just to make a clear idea what I'm talking about. Imagine you're focusing on your breath. Is that you notice your attention, as we did with your eyes, the center of your attention is focused on the breath for, well, not just the center of attention. Your attention in general is focused. You continuously are aware of your breath for maybe a couple of minutes, and then just for a second, you start thinking of something else. Oh, I'm meditating, and you went back to it. That is that means you completely disconnected with what you were doing. The important thing here and why to get a small focus object is because we're so used to do it all the time that many people will think they're meditating and they're actually not meditating. They think they're meditating, but they're not meditating. And you especially notice that when it's not profoundly changing you and your experience of this moment. I'm not saying that every time it's going to be a pleasant experience, but if someone has a good meditation standard, whatever kind of meditation you're doing, is a very, it's like taking a cold shower. You notice, you know, you're doing something with a very profound part of yourself. In this case, we're talking about managing your attention, but you're doing something that it feels close to you're a deeper you compared to just regular behaving and doing this and that. It feels like no, you are attempting to reach a layer of yourself that feels very close to you some way. So, um, yeah, as I was explained before, I was saying maybe in stage one, I would say is average person 8 seconds span. Second, second stage, few minutes, but you still disconnect. That's a very important point to notice that you disconnect, because if you haven't meditated long enough at this point, you will know that one of the biggest problems in meditation is that you don't notice when you disconnect. You notice when you've been lost in thinking for a while. You say, oh, yes, this thing of meditation. So I'm just trying to emphasize this is a bit more subtle than it looks. It is very difficult for a person without training and some sort of discipline exercise for a while to be able to notice when your mind is leaving the object and you're getting lost in thought. It requires skill. I would say, as I was speculating before, the- probably a vast majority of people, even people who have been meditating for a long time, they're still on that stage. Some people, there are new variants, as was mentioned before, with mindfulness that are trying to say, okay, this seems like an impossible thing to ask to anyone to pay attention to something for more than 30 seconds, 1 minute. Like most people just won't be able to do it all. Okay, let's make a meditation where you are actually just changing your object all the time. You're just floating around. So it's not so hard on people. So that's mindfulness, and as commonly known, and Alan was just in retreats in the context of it's not like something he will rant on social media or something like that, but he normally mentioned that is preschool of meditation. You're still not qualifying to transform your mind the way it does. So it is just a little nice break, like for some people, maybe smoking a cigarette or checking on social media. Actually, even it's just a break. It's a nice break. It's definitely way better than checking on social media. But I think it's good to have this bit of a strong, clear categorization of what meditation is and what is not. And so stage two, you are able to sustain there a little bit more. There's a lot of things to say about all these stages and what to do in each one. That's where these books that I mentioned before will. Today, I just have the intention of mentioning this overall. And the third stage is where you increase that to the extent that by the end of the third stage, crossing to the fourth stage, is when you are, let's say, for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, your mind is all the time there. So you will still feeling like, oh yeah, that music in the background is pulling me out. You can feel it. Sometimes you're even, but you're not completely lost your object of meditation. Let's maybe be your breath. But and you know that you are all the time, constantly, continuously aware of your breath. Even the quality may not be so good, but it's like you are driving and paying attention to someone talking to you. You're able to do both things at the same time. It feels something like that. But you are clearly doing both. I say this because this is, again, a very important point. It's very easy without the feedback of a teacher or very long specific study to, it's kind of very tricky to notice when your attention goes away. Does it make sense with your practice? Do you know this idea of noticing that you got lost long after you actually got lost? It's a very, very important point in all this conversation. Probably one of the most useful points. Well, if you practice long enough, at some point you get to the point that you can sustain your attention for long periods of time in one specific object. That's the end of stage three, beginning of stage four, and you start dealing with a different kind of disturbances in your attention, more subtle things. Like, for example, yes, we're talking now, and at some point I see someone moving in there. I'm just going there, but at the same time, I'm aware of what we're doing in here. There's this simultaneity going on, and then it's a different kind of game. Let's say that's why there are stages for all this, so you can fine tune your meditation to the right amount. So, as I said before, maybe a good idea would be to think of switching gears into it. So, in the beginning, expect your mind, when you to meditate, expect your mind to be incredibly um, restless. So think about just feel happy for the first minutes. You're just coming back to the object. And maybe if you've been doing this for a while, you will notice, okay, now I'm focusing, let's say, on the breath. Now I notice there's a certain sense of presence, of being here. And now that it starts becoming apparent to your attention, a certain kind of, oh, yes, I'm here, focus on my breath. Wow, my whole life is calming. So that definitely appears in stage two. And in stage three, you extend that, and as was mentioned, a very important, if not, I would say, the main milestone for most people in general would be to reach that stage where you are constantly, continuously, and you're 100% aware of that your object of attention is inside of your scope of attention. So as done with the eyes before, the example with the eyes, you may see your eyes moving to a different leaf or something like that on the floor, but you didn't lose your initial point because you see all these currents are pulling, unconscious currents are pulling you all the time. So it's okay. I mean, don't trying to hold in there. That will be the regular concentration. And again, this is not going to work. You're fighting against a river or something like that. It's just pointless. And yet, everybody's going to try it. That's okay. But anyways, at some point, if you relax enough, you relax your mind enough, your body, and you could start notice that although these distractions doesn't completely pull you out of the scope of your attention regarding your reference to your object, right? Does it make sense? Good. Um, oh yeah, an important point in here is something that I think probably I would say close to everyone trying this kind of meditation will take it wrong, and it comes from our competitive survival mentality, especially in our times, where we develop a negative sense of the meditation. Like we're not, oh, I got lost. Damn, I lost it again. No, I'm not. I was in stage two yesterday, and now, now I'm losing it. We negatively reinforce our meditation. Okay, that's a very common thing for especially in general for general public just sitting trying to focus their breath on their breath. They literally will do that all the time. They feel really bad about it, very frustrated, and they will say, "This meditation, I hear this sometimes. This, oh yeah, I'm very depressed. I'm on la la yeah yeah. At the meditation thing, I try that." You say, "Yeah, you certainly tried to do it, but." Um, Going back to what I was saying, so a very, very important positive thing. I'm hoping that this is something valuable to some extent, at least to some of you who may not have heard this point made very strongly. And I heard it many times before getting it in the practice, which is positive reinforcement. It is key. You're not going to subdue or concentrate your mind by means of giving too much attention to your distraction. That's going to pull your attention away of the object. You see how tricky this thing is? You need to be aware of the distractions, but if you focus on your distractions, you're lost. Because in some way or another, you're going to start judging yourself and you're going to start feeling, you know, exactly the opposite of what you want. So positive reinforcement means, in this context, I was I was thinking this morning how to say this, and it just comes to my mind this analogy of imagine you go to the sea, something like the Atlantic. I don't know which seas have you been bathing on. I'm talking about a sea with a lot of waves. Like you will get it into the sea, get a little bit there, and you will say, I'm gonna stand in here, and then suddenly, splash, right? You get out and you try, and you so concentration will mean like by means of effort, holding into that. Okay, most likely everybody's mind is gonna focus on doing that because that's what we've been trained, right? In school, in our education in general, at your job, like, hey, stop watching Facebook and pay attention to the meeting. You know, it's like no. So that's the way we tend to manage our attention. You expect that to happen, but the that's negative reinforcement, and that's why it won't last long. It gets you through your job or school or regular concentration, but it's not going to get you through this. This is too subtle for it. So positive reinforcement being the patient of a parent having their kid just going through it and patiently without any violence saying, no, my sweetie, come here. Just come here again, you know? And imagine that in a concept of a ADHD kid that is restless and hyperactive. It implies an incredible amount of patience. And I'm suggesting this is probably where most people should consider starting meditation. Your mind is going to be like ADHD kid. And it's okay, but like any ADHD kid, and I actually do have one, patience is the only way. Any other way is just going to go wrong. You're going to really force him. I mean, you may do in a emergency situation, don't sit there. We are in a plane or something like that. But in general, it's a really bad strategy. So when it comes to managing your attention, I strongly suggest you to have the same kind of patience and self-compassion for yourself. Again, to the analogy of the sea, that will mean like, yes, the wave, yes, is gonna take you off. Probably like every wave is gonna take you off your spot, but you just go back to it. The place where this analogy start not working, and this is where the magic of meditation start happening, is that the sea will start calming down, and that's magic. And it feels like magic when you sort of do it with your attention. You start noticing how these things that were pulling you there apparently will seem to be something that is not your conscious effort. Suddenly you start calming down, and the waves start becoming softer. And this is like this progressing all the stages to the point that can at some point become calm, like a beautiful lake with no wave, transparent that you can see your toes, with beautiful color fishes going around, and with this, our minds can be like that, can be like that. I think this is an important point to say, one of the probably most important points that I'm excited to share, because most people don't think that's even a possibility. And it is a possibility, as you see, if you do in certain ways, right? And the certain way means now we're going to make a meditation. I'm going to suggest you to focus on your breath. And by means of relaxation, as I was saying before, don't think that it's something that you have to add a new task in your mind, like a teacher, school teacher saying, "Right, go back to it, go back to it." Not going to work. Okay, so drop that teacher away, drop that self-discipline, forcing yourself to do something you don't want to do thing. Not going to work. It may feel like it worked, but I promise you, it's just going to be 1 minute, and your mind is going to be, your brain is going to start draining its own energy. So you will certainly end up with, many people end up with tension in your forehead. So if you ever are trying to do any kind of concentration, stabilizing your attention exercise, and you feel a tension around your eyes, be sure you've been trying to concentrate on the regular way. That's just a typical. Anyway, you will feel restless and you will definitely get the benefits. So now let's go into the practice. And as I was trying to explain, yes, certainly your attention will go astray. Just count on it. But just basically come back. And here's the thing, this is something that I was kind of trying to say with the analogy of the sea. One of the most marvelous things is to discover that every time you correct gently your attention back, you are disentangling an unconscious, contradictory tendency in your mind, which translates into whatever kind of depression, shitty thoughts you may have in your life. This is how you feel it. It's something that's pulling you out of your experience in some way or another. So, in this exercise, you feel it like a tendency to go away. And in the beginning, you're gonna feel a bit hopeless. So yeah, just count on it's going to happen. You're gonna disconnect with the object. That's okay. But reinforcing it, I mean, trying to deny it, trying to suppress it in any way will actually reinforce it. Okay, so every time you're following that tendency, imagine there's a voice that comes in here in the talk in the park, and someone comes to tell you, "Hey, you have something to come with me. You have something to do there." You know, like and for a second we are kind of hypnotized, and oh yeah, 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 I'm going, and you go a little bit, but at some point, oh, I'm meditating. So you don't even talk to that person anymore. You don't say to that person goodbye. You don't say, don't distract me to that person. You just gently go back. And when you did that, that guy, it was going to come back. But he's going to come back with a way softer voice and won't be able to dare to approach you so much. So it's going to drain, you're going to drain all the distractions little by little with a lot of patience coming back. So I ask you to treat yourself with a lot of patience, but at the same time with a lot of clarity and diligence, and knowing that going astray from your conscious decision of staying, let's say, in your breath, it goes against everything you want. Okay, so let's explore that. Sit in a comfortable position. Sorry, skip a very important part. Anyone has a question? I said a lot of stuff, but I hope it was clear. I love that question. I'm so excited to talk about it. But let me um, narrow the focus to the practice, and later on we go in and we I have all day to stay in here. I'm all for you. My wife and kid are away, so I'm here all for you to the end of each one that you satisfy or whatever question you may have. But I'm gonna ask you to hold that for a later moment, and let's try to have the conversation for now a bit more specific into the practice itself, and then we can talk about the consequences or the effects of meditation. It's okay? Um, the general rule is straight spine. That's what it will allow your nervous system to gain the most of the realm of subtle attention, at the same time profound relaxation in your spine. If you slur your back, you're gonna find after a few minutes you lose your energy, you lose your mental energy directly. That's actually general meditation when you feel a little foggy or you're going out. Normally one of the most common instruction is like straight up. That just straighten up. It just there's a lot more there's a lot more energy. There's even chemicals reaching your brain and stimulating it in a positive, calm way. So, straight spine in a calm way, again, not like if it's tense, again, it's not working. And yet, it comes to the problematic of what happens with the legs. Because unless you've been grow up in an environment where we were sitting on your legs naturally, that's going to be a problem for meditation. So my general advice is that if you if you didn't normally already sit on a comfortable position with a straight spine on your legs already without meditation, then I would suggest, just for the sake of maximizing what we're doing here today, to lay down. Just a suggestion, please do stay sick. But for example, problematics with for many of us, if you don't have enough flexibility in your hips, if your legs are above or the side of your hips, your spine is gonna be stable enough, and you're gonna leave a little developed tension in your spine. You that may work for a few minutes, like maybe a 5 minute meditation or 5 minute meditation. But if you're attempting to stay longer, you may find a problem with that. Nevertheless, for just for practical uh, instruction for the day, you can start standing, and whenever you feel, oh, okay, this is distracting me from my meditation, from the subtle art of bringing your attention back to your breath, then just lay down on the floor, get a comfortable position, and try not to fall asleep. Okay. Sorry, you were about to mention. Hmm. Hmm. Okay, it was a sharing, right? No, it was because you mentioned. Okay, yeah, thank you so much. That's a very important point. And it is mentioned, especially in the mind illuminated, you have a specific protocol. So it is a classic instruction to actually arise motivation before the meditation, because your meditation probably will match, as you were describing, um, your intention for the session itself. Meaning, if you go there just sit and meditate because I have to, then yeah, probably not going to happen. But as you were saying, you're before even trying to meditate, you are collecting yourself, you are assessing where you are. Again, in the mind illuminated, they have a very specific, very useful procedure on how to assess your state, assess what kind of level of game you're gonna be playing on that specific session. Try to guess it. Try to predict obstacles you may find in that session. So there's a lot of interesting tips between them. Exactly what you mentioned, being grateful to yourself, like just the fact that I'm sitting in here and then I'm trying. It is already counting. And yes, as someone said, uh, there is no bad meditation, or no. The only wrong meditation is the one that you don't do. So thank you so much for bringing that point. And now let's proceed to the meditation itself. So in a comfortable position, many people will benefit from breathing a bit deeper just to get started, just to collect your mind, your intention, your emotions, your sensations, your nervous system. So just a few deep, slow breaths that when you inhale, you notice your belly in a relaxed manner, moving a bit forward. And when you breathe out, there is just an effortless letting go of the air. Just stretch your breath a bit more than usual, just to fine tune. We're gonna have a good training today with this perfect environment for distraction training. So, as we were mentioning before, the knee reaction to distraction is actually relaxation. So, preparing yourself, make sure that your body it is fully relaxed. Without doing much, you may notice that spontaneously unnecessary tension from your muscles start popping out. Just a soft, slow breath. So, just out of the natural spontaneity of the situation, just make sure that the auditory stimulus is not pulling you out. You're not having an emotional reaction to the voice of that guy. You're just letting it be a faceless auditory experience like any other sound. It's just sensory auditory information. Don't let your brain make a meaning out of the sound of what's happening. Release yourself from having to conceptually make a meaning and react to all these sounds. All the sounds are the same, are just sounds. And like when you read a book in a busy place and you can still get absorbed in the book, by relaxation and interest, you can absolutely let go of your environmental stimuli and succeed in your meditation. So now that your body is calm, your breath is calm, let your breath be natural and spontaneous without controlling it in any special way. So start noticing specifically, narrowing down from all the sensations of breathing you may have. Choose to focus consciously in the sensations of the breath through your nostrils. So you have a lot of sensory random input from your environment, but you're discarding all that, put it in the background, and invite your attention to condense effortlessly the sensations of the breath through your nostrils. You're not trying to modify your breath, although some people may still do it for a while. That's okay. But at some point, just let your breath be as it is. Let your body manage your breath. You don't need to control it. That way you can go deeper. And one very useful trick used for centuries to collect your mind a bit around what we're doing is to, while you're attending to the sensations in your nostrils, count your breaths. Inhaling and exhaling, count as one, and invite your mind, as if you were counting sheep to fall asleep, invite your mind to count your breaths, to collect your attention, your interest, effortlessly, gently, on the sensations of the breath in your nostrils. If you lose the counting, just go back to one. It is okay. Let everything be as it is. You are retracting your attention from all over the place, reacting to everything, to collecting your attention just the sensations of the nostrils. You count every breath. It doesn't matter how the breath is, just the fact that you're counting it. Your body is relaxed, your face is relaxed, your breath is relaxed. And the center of your attention is the sensations of the breath in your nostrils, counting each breath. If your attention goes straight, just gently bring it back. The counting will help you understand if you lost it too much. But expect your mind to go a bit stray every now and then from the clear sensations of the breath through your nostrils. Keep counting. With your attention resting in your nostrils, feeling the sensations of the breath in and out. Your body completely relaxed. Many other sensory stimuli in the background, that's okay. You don't need to push it away. But you're consciously, diligently deciding for your attention to rest in the sensations of the breath in your nostrils. And at some point, you can drop the counting and just directly stay with the sensations of the breath. In the foreground of your attention is only the sensations of the breath in the nostrils, and in the background of your attention, like in the peripheral, external part of your attention, you can still feel other sensory impulses, from thoughts to sounds to sensations in your body. Just let them be, let them come and go in the background of your attention. And yet you have a clear, conscious acknowledgement that your attention is resting single pointedly in the sensations of your breath in your nostrils. At this stage, there are different strategies that people use to stay more consistent. A well-known one is to zoom in, get a bit more interest in the specific sensations of your breath. Meaning, you may have noticed our mind makes a concept of the sensations of the breath, and many times we just stick to observing conceptually the breath. But if you would nakedly observe every experience of your breath, you will notice that it's not a specific entity, it's not a conceptual entity, it's a sequence of specific dynamic sensations with a lot of tiny variations and modifications. For example, when you breathe in, the breath is a bit colder. When you breathe out, your breath is a bit warmer. So if your attention goes stray, your knee reflex to relax from whatever other business this is inviting you to do or to think, and you come back. But you can reinforce your interest in a gentle way, becoming curious about every detail of the sensations of the breath. Like, is the inhaling longer than the exhaling? Is there a pause in between inhaling, exhaling? Is there a pause between exhaling, inhaling? Try to observe as many qualities of these phases of the breath as possible and see them as a continuum of interesting, changing activity with a lot of subtle and subtler levels of definition. Your body is fully relaxed. You consciously decided to ignore any other thing, and you are gently enhancing the interest in your breath by noticing every subtle detail as it happens dynamically, moment after moment. Notice the changes in speed in the phases. When you start inhaling, you will notice that you don't have a constant speed. Sometimes you start inhaling a bit faster, then you slow down by the end of the inhaling, and so on. Try to capture as many details of your breath as you can. Another trick that you can use when you become aware of the phases of the breath, in, holding, out, holding, is to compare one breath with the previous one. Trying to notice if the breath, the inhaling now, is it faster, shorter, deeper than the previous one, or is the same, or is less? You can do that with any phase of the breath, or with all of them at the same time. Just a matter of how much resolution you can get out of each breath, how deeply immersed in every detail you can be. Doesn't matter how many times you're distracted. Like when you're watching a movie, you just simply go back to the movie with interest. You are just monitoring your breath with a high level of accuracy in real time of every single sensation that putting together you call your breath. There's actually distinct momentary sensations popping in and out, alive, with a lot of variations. Become interested in every possible variation in your breath, every subtle dimension of it. Relax your attention from the periphery and notice every detail from the happening of the breath in your nostrils. Your body is fully relaxed. Your interest in your environment is relaxed and passive. And your interest, your curiosity, is naturally resting in the happening of your breath in your nostrils. And if your body and mind are relaxed and your attention is anchored on your breath, then you can start noticing when your mind is pulled away, but you don't disconnect from the breath. Maybe through a thought, through something you hear or you feel. But you notice that your breath is always in your periphery, even when your attention is sucked into a different thing. You notice that the breath is always there. Maybe not in the center all the time. That's okay. It just happened, like the waves in the analogy before. Your attention is going to be pulled away. That's okay. But if you are relaxed enough and you relax your mind enough with a clear intention of focusing on the breath, you will notice that even when a distraction comes, you never really fully get away from the breath. Some way you're still aware of it even when something is trying to distract you. Just notice that elastic movements of your attention. If you get distracted, it's okay. Just try to see if you can distinguish when you completely lose your breath and when the breath is simply going to the background and the distraction is in the foreground, just for a moment. Then you go back Everything done effortlessly, gently, with curiosity. Your body fully relaxed, your breath is smooth and easy, out of your control. Your forehead is relaxed, your mind is relaxed. You're very aware of your presence here and now. Now let's switch to a slightly different approach where you're going to allow your attention to freely connect with other things, maybe sounds, body sensations, or thoughts, but you are never losing the awareness of the breath. So you're not trying to restrict your attention with the breath. You're giving some rope to your attention, to your focus to be a bit wild. And yet, at the same time, you are monitoring that even when you're paying attention to something else, your attention is not completely disconnected of the breath in your nostrils, that that's still in the periphery. So feel free to explore your moment to moment experience freely, but without losing the awareness of your breath at any given time. So now your awareness is anchored in the nostrils, noticing the breath in the background, and you're allowing the center of your attention, the foreground, to freely move wherever it wants, but never losing the awareness of the nostrils. Now let go of the intention of even meditating. Just rest in open awareness for a few moments. You're not trying to control your attention in any way. You're just resting even from meditating. Go deep into a restful, open state where your awareness just embraces everything as if you were falling asleep but aware. And very gently, sustaining that level of relaxation in your body, you can start inviting your fingers to move a little bit, and very gently, and take your time, you can start opening your eyes and come back, transitioning softly and gently. Goes without saying, you're just extending the meditation, right? So let your spacious welcoming of the moment stay there. The relaxation, the crispy attention, the sense of flow, of timing in experiencing. And now is when we put our minds together and if anyone spontaneously feel like sharing inside of the context of the practice. I mean, we are all sitting here right now doing this specific practice. There are many experiences that can happen in different people, and we're putting our minds together to investigate what's happening. And the reason why there's a lot of value in sharing is because many times maybe people are having the same experience privately, alone. Sometimes um, expressing it out loud. To start with, it helps you to reflect yourself and what your experience, but also, of course, feel free to ask any specific question related to the suggestions of the practice that I'm doing, or any specific experience that you had if you're not sure if what is what. You find it difficult? Yeah. Why? Nice, nice. And when you say difficult, in the beginning. Hmm. Yeah. Yes. 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 Well, first, I'm very glad to hear that. I'm very glad to hear that you experienced that because just the fact that you yourself felt, oh, today this is not going to work, and the fact that you later on you actually sort of manage your attention is a great deal of an accomplishment. And that's exactly the whole point of the practice, to notice how you can improve in a very specific way and all the benefits. Um, um, yeah, it was close to comical, right? Just the moment with, okay, let's close our eyes and the guy's super excited. I have a friend who does the same job in things like this, and it's they're professionals on how to be very intense, let's say. So yeah, it was comical. I also for a second I said like, damn, should we move all together? I mean, can people are gonna be able to focus at all? But thankfully he got calm after a while. And so did we. Maybe there's a relationship between these two events, but yes, yes, that's a very, very significant effect. In a general, more casual way, is like when you are interested watching something or reading something, how you could be in the middle of a very loud environment and still it's an interesting event, right? Because most of the time, most people say, I'm very bad at concentrating, or people say, sometimes people self-diagnose, I have ADHD. Why? Because I just don't, I cannot pay attention to things that I'm not interested in. Yeah. Yes. Hmm. You mean that there's some memories that spontaneously pop up in your mind? He was talking to a microphone. And Yeah, I don't know to which extent, but yes, that's something I haven't mentioned that is very important from this kind of meditation. When specifically in this kind of meditation, there's a lot of healing. So there's a lot of spontaneous memories and experiences that people sometimes somatize in their bodies, certain kind of stuff, for example, pains. And I'm just saying that that's something we have to talk about later. But have all sorts of experiences and things that are clearly somatic, like they wouldn't feel it in meditation. So you see in meditation, there is this thing that comes to me when I'm meditating, attention in here or thing like that. But many times visions or memories, something like that, it is not something to avoid. It is part of the process. You just open the. Okay, I'm not gonna repress my unconscious. And start little by little, start these bubbles pop up. And of course, the practice is like in this practice, there are other practices, but in this practice, it's like just let them come and go, meaning like the bubble of a memory or experience that sometimes can be very intense and people are very confused. But interestingly enough, when this happens, the teacher will say, yes. And the person is like, no, you don't understand. I have a pain in my back when I, and no, 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 yes, great. That's progress. And what progress? I feel pain. I have a friend who was in a retreat, very intense retreat, and it's like having pain in his hands like hell, like he couldn't focus on it. And the teacher saying like, yes. And but that experience is not a coincidence some way. And when he let it go a little farther, in this case, that was something he had to sort of release. It became a very strong release for him. So it became a blessing. So now when he talks about it, talks it like a great moment of release. But in the moment and without the right environment, he was on a retreat with a teacher. For many people sitting in other place and trying to go through this thing in a can bring up a lot of things, and that makes many people, oh, I'm not gonna meditate because this feels really bad. While no, it's actually going good. So thank you for sharing that. And just the counting, just cycling back to your commentary, the counting is very, very useful, especially stage one and two, two mostly, two and three, I would say, is very useful, the counting, because it helps you to see you're not floating too far away from it. So the counting is our mind is already trained. The amount of brain you activate to do that is relatively small. Some people say you have to count, many traditions say you have to count only to 10, then start again. But in my experience, that hasn't been the case. You can just count as much as you want. The only problem with it would be that if you do it too much, it will become automatic. So your mind's so smart that we'll be able to still distract it while keeping the counting. And that, of course, that's not the purpose of the counting. But it can be very useful. Thank you for sharing. Oh, sorry, oh, again. You are promoting it. Cool. Hmm. 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 Yes. With their eyes closed. Okay. Um, I'm gonna answer from the context of this meditation and tradition. I say this because some other people will say something different. But let's say short answer, yes, visualizations, anything that is sort of an activity of your brain is considered thinking. It's just visual thinking. You can have auditory thinking, and you can even have other kind of more subtle things thinking. Actually, at some point when your mind calms down enough, there is some humming. There is some strange things, even somatic things that are related to thinking. So in the context of what we were discussing of choosing one specific object, there are different stages of, and in different stages you deal with it differently. Some stages you will just cut through and say, I'm gonna ignore that event completely. And in other stages, as I was trying to kind of invite by the end of this session, you just embrace them into what it is. You're not doing anything about them and just letting your attention be a bit more free. At some point, as long, and I'm talking about the advanced level, when you are 100% sure at any given time, in any given second, or even millisecond, that your attention is continuous and full and powerful, then you can freestyle out of the object. What? How long does it take? It changes from person to person a lot. Meaning there are some standards because many people did this before. And for example, Alan Wallace says that uh, unless on retreat, people won't be able to cross to stage 4 to have a continuous peripheral attention of the object. Meaning it's very, very demanding about what we're talking, you know? And he says like it takes that level of intense preparation in terms of your lifestyle, meaning that having a normal life, like being stressed at work and having all that, you won't be able to cultivate such a balance in your attention. I'm just trying to give you some sort of statistic about it. But in the mind illuminated, the reasons why I'm tilting more towards that in general is because he says, no, you can absolutely do it. And a normal person in the mind illuminated, he estimates that I don't remember exactly what he says, but something around like a normal person practicing at least one 45 minutes session or more a day should, and following rigorous specific practice related to the stages where you are and what you have to do from there, should in 2 years accomplish the 10 stages. I also hear that in retreat, a person can make it in 9 months. But let me tell you, stage 9 and 10, I mean, it's crazy. It's, it won't look human to describe the amount of accuracy of what I'm discussing. I'm saying this as a reference of the information that I have regarding how long will it take from someone. What I can tell you from personal basis, a little bit of both. It requires a lot of understanding of what you're doing and technical goal setting and things. At the same time, it requires that you start making some adjustments in your lifestyle, like if you have major stress or major trauma or major something in your life, like you have a really confusing job or very challenging relationships, that is definitely something that is, you go there, there's nothing wrong with your technique. It's just that the sum up of the 24 hours in your mind are a little messy. So for many people, even when they have good meditation technique, they will feel a drawback or a limitation because of the rest of their life. And by that, I only mean, honestly, I think you need to cultivate. Your friends will tell, oh, you do things in kind of a special way. Like you rarely complain, you rarely just rant on people freely, you rarely put the emphasis of your problems in external circumstances. You seem to hold your calm at work even when stressed. You tend to listen with a lot of careful compassion to people, even in an intense emotional situation. People will mention things like that. I would say for someone to to be able to sit on meditation and actually go relatively deeper. Let's put in, I would say between accomplishing the third stage and getting to the fourth stage, which implies never losing your object of attention from your peripheral awareness at any given time. It implies, I would say, already a personality, let's say, which is just choices in your lifestyle. And for most of us, it takes probably that's one of the most difficult parts of the whole process because you could be good at the meditating thing, and some people can be stubborn and yeah, but still, if you're it's way more subtle than that, and if you have having emotional imbalances is very common. So for some people, it could take a very long time, and I've seen people who've been meditating for decades and going to retreats one or twice a year. And if you have to assess with a personal, deep, private conversation, I mean, nothing that, I mean, really talking about profound understanding of life and emotional way of processing things, they still had a lot to do, like a lot. And on the contrary, I found people in these meetings spontaneously, sometimes people who come, and you can tell they have a natural thing for it. So I think for some people can be very relatively short. And I would say this is just cycling back to not to a genetic conditioning or even how your partner is or your job is. I mean, not to blame it into all the circumstances, but I would say going back to what you mentioned in the beginning, how motivated you are for this, it will certainly short the time for it a lot. So if you really like, I'm tired of living a life that you see other people and you say, well, where this is leading me, I'm just gonna have to settle into suffering just the way things are, and people are suck, and everyone is crazy, and you play games of negotiating your relationships, and your boss just wants to get you, so you better get the best at as far as you can and make a better deal in your contract, and that's the career excitement to find a better contract somewhere. I don't know, just um, if you're really tired of all that, and at the same time you develop a sensitivity thanks to a book or through some people, like you seem to be a facilitator for your friends, like someone is around and saying, hey, there's another way, there's another way, there's another way. So combining the two, I think you say, I'm going for this, I would say incredible amounts of transformation can be accomplished with regular daily practice and probably with some sort of supervision with, I'm not saying a teacher, but definitely a group of people who are more experienced than you, at least people who have been through where you are. It helps a lot. It saves a lot of time. So I would say with that conditions, I would say someone can do unbelievable progress in, yeah, 1 to a year. Did I answer your question? Just throw some sort of random information all over the place, but relatively. They are good at that. Hmm. Hmm. That's your friends. That's your friends because of your influence. Oh, very nice. Yeah, that's great. That's beautiful. It calls for your results. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the way you're talking, I say this because for some people, when you get this stage where you're excited about a book or something you discover and you're just like tormenting people around you about it. Normally, these people wouldn't follow you. So the fact that you have friends who are feeling improvements in their lives is like the next stage. It means that you positively engage them. It means that I'm just making a backwards analysis that you're definitely in your life already. They wouldn't follow that example if it wasn't because they clearly see, oh no, yeah, this is really working for you. Yeah, nice, nice. Congratulations. In the Buddhist context, you are, or some Eastern context, you're burning karma like hell doing that. It's the way of the bodhisattva. It's that? You know about that? In different kinds of Buddhism, in Theravada Buddhism, which where most of the mindfulness that we have comes, it is the standard is the arahat is like someone who just gets enlightened, like becomes very good at meditating and so on. But in Mahayana Buddhism, that's basically what the Dalai Lama represents. They have different standards. They say not only that you enlighten yourself, but you do go farther in upgrading your life in, let's call it, heavens or earth, because you stay here for other people. So you care so much about the world. So that's the what is that about? Meaning that is a very loable thing, probably in every culture, right? You're a good guy. You're a good friend. That's beautiful. You get me. You get me. We need more people than you. Like you. Oh, thank you so much for coming. Okay, thank you. Have a good day. Ciao. Um. Okay. I don't know what time is it. Yeah, it's already two. Um. Just for the sake, if anyone has a question, yes, sure. No, I mean, I apologize. No, yeah, the way that I understand meditation, I, I used to have a meeting like this, and I will never guide a meditation. I will just give the instruction. I will just never, ever guide a meditation. So, I mean, it's something that I had to make a process to make it, and the only reason why I did it is because I find out that for most people it's beneficial. And yet, I insist, actually also mentioned many times that following guided meditations is just an entry level of meditation because following guided meditations is a good thing to, it's a good entry level to meditation. But when you start becoming a bit more ambitious about the results, you want to understand the technique you're doing. You want to understand the adjustment of it. As we were discussing, that in a different day you will feel different. So I just went through a kind of like generic stage by stage thing. And what we just did today, for example, I just like went through different things, and it would have been perfectly fine for anyone to stay with one of them. Let's say maybe with accounting, you can say, of course, the whole set. You can spend months with accounting, and people spend years with accounting. So I just kind of did this as for people to have a bit of more like a practical experience, not just talking about it. So um, yeah, for these meetings, I just do it. I found it to be statistically better for making. Well, good news is I'm not gonna be with you every day. So you're gonna have to make it on your own. So hopefully something stick from what we did and in a practical sense, because if you explain it, it's a different thing. But when we walk through it together, something like, oh, okay, that's what you mean. You're a different kind of zone. So hopefully you get a bit of a practical sense, and then now any of you can go home and sort of play out with that and see what is this whole thing with the distraction thing, with the thing, with the stages thing. Again, it's just a reference, not supposed to make you feel like. But I say can be very useful used correctly. Can be very useful to help you intensively improve in your meditation. Okay, so just do whatever you feel inspired to do at home, and what my point would be, if you would like to follow one of these instructions, like I would suggest to get one of these two books and just try to go dab on it and try to see with their, because each of them have a bit of different suggestions for the meditations, let's say. So just try to make your own with it, but at the same time, try to keep the standard of okay, am I really keeping the object all the time in there, or I'm disconnecting sometimes? So I may be in stage two. Why is that useful? Because depending on that, you may use certain kind of meditation or another. So again, this is a very complex and deep process. teaching and topic. So I just trying to synthesize as much as I can in time I have. But hopefully you get some specific pointers of a specific thing in the meditation that you can adjust consciously and use it in your private meditations on the fly whenever you feel is the right time to do. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. It's a good point. It's a good point. And actually, just thank you because something I didn't mention. Like with the counting a little bit, the good news about all this that you don't even need to consciously listen to, like focusing your attention. So maybe you were actually asking about that, and I didn't answer. And thank you so much. You're answering it very, very well. Yeah, when you're following a meditation, you don't need to be like listening to it like exclusively. And a bit of a interesting thing, you can just let it be there. And interestingly enough, we follow it without even trying to follow it. So it's not something you have to be consciously trying to follow. That may be in the beginning, but if some people are following certain meditations, will be more like hypnosis, you know? They just put there, they go to sleep and just listen to that. So like it's a very laid back way of listening. But again, I find it useful sometimes to listen to the guided meditations, whatever teacher you come across, because you have a practical sense of what they mean or what they do. But of course, I would say that ultimately, with any technique, you actually want to be assessing where you are at any given time so you can balance out of it. So there's no chance anyone from the outside will really do it. Although many people really like to follow someone's guidance in the sense like, now we're here, now we're there, now we're there. And that can be also very practical and useful. So in that sense, I'm not disregarding guided meditations in the context of a teacher in a certain environment can be very useful. I have profound benefits, but in a context of a retreat, in a context of specific teaching, can be very, very useful. Um, but because you're already trained into that context, you're swimming, your mind is swimming on these things, so the teacher is just kind of like helping you balance. And normally, a good teacher that is working in a very context and everybody's working on the same level is able to leave space for the people to balance during the meditation too, so they don't do this, and that. They explain a very clear, specific stage of the topic and let you be there. And they may guide a little bit, just with very minimal cues to navigate. I'm extending too much, maybe the answer. But yeah, as he brilliantly said, just you cannot give a crap and still benefit a lot from a guided meditation. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, there's a reason why many teachers actually do guided meditations because, as you can imagine, the chances that someone lose it after a few minutes, um, the chances that someone misses the momentum after a few minutes is very high. So actually, some reminders here and there can be very useful. In certain contexts, some people don't do at all, but in a generic context, I agree with you. It can be very beneficial until you sort of like integrate the instructions and sort of like, okay, so you get here and you do this and you do that, and there's if you notice, okay, this is there, then you go there, and when you have it very well integrated, until that point, guided meditation can be incredibly useful because I know very well, and if you've been in certain environments, I've seen many people meditating for a very long time for nothing. Unfortunately, that is the case many times. So, in that sense, you would say, well, what's better, to be completely lost in you don't know what you're doing for a very long time, or following a standard guided meditation? Well, it should be evident to you in the end of the meditation. But that, so yes. Sorry, it was in person? Okay. Yeah, I think it's as until you have unconsciously integrated instructions of the meditation. And depending on the meditation, depending how difficult it is, depending on your personality, that may take longer or shorter. But I think you're making a good point. And that's there's a but thank you because that's exactly what I suggest people to learn very well a specific technique with specific instructions, and then you try on your own. Because what I think is very important to remind people is meditations. It is not like a foggy, sleepy thing. No, it's actually more alive than the regular feeling lost in distraction. So in that sense, having the standard of even yeah, what is working better, if the teacher is reminded you to be present and is focusing on the exercise, then that's better. And when you switch on your own, it happened to me many times that I felt, oh, I didn't integrate these instructions. I need to go back. Like you get into meditation, you don't exactly know where you are, or you no, that's really bad. That's I would say it's wasting people's time. So yeah, sounds. Thank you for sharing that. So we go to 2 p.m. As I explained before, I have a freestyle day. Normally I don't, but today I have it. So I'm very open to hang out a little bit more for those of you if you want. I was just my plans were just to mention briefly other stages, the consequence stages, just a little bit briefly, and yeah, probably that's it, or maybe just have a deeper sharing. You were mentioning sanghas, you were mentioning people getting together. Sometimes not today, but many times, and I don't know if you when you've been there, I mentioned sometimes when we get together, I say like ignore my voice, like do your meditation, in the sense of because I think the real value of getting together is the fact that we sit and there is a bit of an energy or a bit of a context. There is a bit of a that is eliciting all of us to sit with other people with the same intention. I think that's the powerful thing to get together. Some people do in silence. Some people, like in this context, we talk. Some people talk all the time. So there are many different points of how to do it. But I think underlying all that is the intention. And so unless anyone has anything to say, I just want to, just in case someone's leaving, just want to thank you everyone for coming today. And I hope you got some benefit out of this. I just it was kind of like a freestyle improvisation and all this is a very deep topic. I strongly recommend you to get one of these two books that I mentioned before. We have on WhatsApp in our community. There's a WhatsApp. There's a chat specifically called the Elephant Path. elephant path and the different, and that is a group specifically talking about this topic. I say this because if you go home and you, oh, I was trying this thing you mentioned the other day about this and it's not working, or I read the book and there is this thing at that point, I don't know what this means or something like that. That option is there for you to keep sharing and keep all together in a virtual way to keep beyond from this moment. Okay. The attention revolution. Also, I'm doing. If you go to that group, I'm doing a. Or you can ask me if you have me in WhatsApp. Most of you mentioned you got me in WhatsApp. You can ask me, and I can send you. There's a document that I'm little by little doing. I'm trying to put together for the hope of making this information more accessible to more people. I bring it together a document, a doc on Google Docs, where I'm just kind of like summarizing the stages from and making it a bit of a contrast between the different books and actually the original text and my own opinion. I mean that hopefully that the whole together, I find it very beneficial for hearing many different people talking about the same path in different ways and different contexts. So that's why I'm doing that document. That's also available to any of you. You can just ask me. Okay. So thank you. So if anyone to hang out in here, we can do it.